The Abraham Series. Story number 6. Sarai gives Hagar to Abram. Taken from Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 16. After the assurance from the Lord that Abram would have a son of his own, one can only imagine Sarai's renewed hope and anticipation of having a child. But as the months and years went by with no pregnancy, Sarai was faced with some very hard choices. Perhaps there was another way. In the culture of that time, Sarai's offer to provide Abram an heir through a surrogate would not only be understood, but perhaps even seen as an obligation. The child would be viewed as Sarai and Abram's. It is interesting to note that Sarai's handmaid was Egyptian. Perhaps Hagar was given to Sarai when she entered the household of the Pharaoh. We are not told. But a handmaid was not just another household servant. A handmaid was a constant companion, a trusted friend, and often the personal confidant of her mistress. Keep that in mind as this story begins. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to give Abram a child. But Sarai had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "Listen, the Lord has stopped me from having children. Why don't you have relations with my servant? Perhaps I can have a family through her." And Abram listened to Sarai's request. So after Abram had lived in the land of Canaan 10 years, Sarai, Abram's wife, took her Egyptian servant Hagar and gave her to Abram as his wife. Abram went in to Hagar, and she conceived. But when Hagar realized that she had conceived, she looked on her mistress Sarai with contempt. And Sarai said to Abram, "I have been wronged, and it's your fault. I gave my servant into your arms, and now that she's pregnant, she looks at me with contempt. The Lord will judge between you and me." But Abram told Sarai, "She's your servant. You deal with her in your own way." But Sarai's treatment of Hagar was so harsh that Hagar ran away. Now the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the wilderness, on the road that goes to Shur. And the angel said, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where are you coming from? And where are you going?" And Hagar replied, "I am running away from Sarai, my mistress." But the angel of the Lord told Hagar, "Go back to Sarai and put yourself in her hands." And the angel of the Lord told Hagar something else. "I am going to increase the number of your descendants until they cannot be counted." And the angel of the Lord continued, "Now listen to me. You are pregnant, and you are going to have a son. Name him Ishmael, because Jehovah heard you when you cried out to him in your trouble. Your son will be a stubborn man, like a donkey. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will live in conflict with the rest of his family." So Hagar called the Lord who spoke to her, "You are a God who sees." Because Hagar said, "I have seen the one who sees me." So the well became known as the well of the living one, who sees. It's between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave birth to Abram's son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Abram's son, Ishmael. The Abraham Series. Story number 6. Sarai gives Hagar to Abram. Taken from Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 16.